Thank you for joining us for our next installment of our small group series. Chad, would you go ahead and read for us?
Yeah, Luke 9:23. And he said to all, if any would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in his glory, and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I tell you truly, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God.
In Luke's gospel, there's this section between about chapters 9 and 19 where it really kind of focuses on the ministry of Jesus and the teaching of Jesus and brings us into what occurs before Jesus enters Jerusalem for the last time, the conflicts that happen there with the religious leaders, and then ultimately the cross. And really, Jesus is inaugurating a different kind of kingdom, and that kingdom is going to be in conflict with the kingdom that's already been established. And really what Jesus lays out is that it's worth everything to change kingdoms. It's this transformation of the kingdom of man into the kingdom of God is really worth everything. And so that's kind of the focus of what he teaches. And one of the things that he does is he sends out disciples ahead of him. He sends out 70 or 72, depending on which bit you read. And what is it that Jesus is doing by sending out disciples? And what should we learn from that fact?
It seems like he's laying the groundwork for his new kingdom, and maybe kind of announcing the coming of his new kingdom, and kind of a parallel to maybe how that might happen in an earthly sense with an earthly kingdom, maybe. And but I think he's kind of making people aware there's going to be a little bit of a rule change here.
What would be does Jesus just need workers? I mean, it's just, he's like, hey, I can only be in one place at one time. I need you guys to help me out here. Or is there some other motive behind calling people up and sending them out?
That's a great question. You always hear it said, God doesn't need you, but he allows us to participate in what he's doing. And obviously there's truth to that. But in this specific sense, I don't know that I quite know.
Jesus here is, in inaugurating a kingdom, we generally think of a kingdom in physical terms, right? And it seems to me that in order for you to be in the kingdom needs to be in you. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
And so does that play into this sending out the 72 at all, do you think? Is there something about working in the kingdom, participating in it, that's necessary for you to be in the kingdom?
Absolutely. I mean, in this sense, it's not the same sort of kingdom as our earthly kingdoms, and we'll set up a castle and things of the sort. The kingdom is the people, and by sending out the 70, he's sending out the kingdom itself, and by participating in this, it's evidence that they are the kingdom.
Yeah, I think that in our modern culture, we have a tendency to misunderstand kind of the structures or the physical kingdom for the actual kingdom. As an example, we spent 20 years over in Afghanistan, and we were going to bring democracy, and we built roads, and we built schools, and we built courthouses and those kinds of things, and the roads were transporting opium, and the schools were teaching Sharia law, and the courts were practicing Sharia. We didn't seem to understand that a court building is not the same thing as bringing justice. Why is it that we have such a hard time making this distinction?
I think we look at the externals of a kingdom and not realize that the externals are kind of a facade if the internals aren't there to support it. If you can say we have democracy and stuff like that, but if the people themselves don't actually believe in democracy, you don't actually have democracy. And it won't long stand as a democracy if that is true. And same thing there, you can put all the externals there in Afghanistan, for instance, of what our view of democracy is, but if it's not in the heart of the people, you don't actually have it.
Yeah. And one of the things that Jesus talks about a lot in this section is he talks about wealth and possessions. Now, what does that have to do with this inauguration of the kingdom?
So I think it has to do with what we value, and having a proper set of values. And oftentimes in earthly kingdoms, we put wealth kind of towards the top. And I think Jesus is just trying to kind of make sure that we've got the top of the kingdom the way it should be. And for many, that might have to dethrone wealth in their minds.
Yeah, it almost seems like there's a parallel here between, what we've just talked about with the kind of externals of democracy, with having a school or having a courthouse, but not having any real education or any real justice, and wealth being kind of this external physical thing that is representative of something but isn't necessarily the thing itself. What is wealth really a marker of?
Wealth is a marker of abundance, and it's supposed to be a marker of kind of living in God's presence. And you talk about peace in the biblical sense, shalom, and it's not just peace, it's this comprehensive of like just wholeness and perfect well-being and abundance, and it's supposed to be a symbol of God's presence. But in this case, wealth can be kind of a false symbol.
Right. So it should be representing the presence of God, but it doesn't necessarily do that. In the passage that we were just read, it's talking about kind of the idea of submission, and really that's kind of at the heart of this. Is there any way to live in the kingdom of God without submission?
No, absolutely not.
In inaugurating the kingdom, Jesus is calling people to submission. How does that message received?
You get a mixed reception, right? And for those who are heavily vested in the earthly kingdom that exists here and now, it's not typically well received. But they're, the fields are white with harvest, right? And there are many who are ready to be vested in a new kingdom.